welcome you to the latest edition of Express Adda, a series of informal interactions with news and opinion makers. Our last session featured Alia Bhatt, and it feels great to be back in Mumbai with another exciting session featuring Gaur Gopal Dasji, life coach, wellness advisor, author, and motivational strategist. He will be in conversation with Anant Goenka, the executive director of the Indian Express Group.
Super. Swamiji, it's not how packed the house is that's surprising me. Really, I think it's the diversity of the crowd that's kind of, not surprising me, but I think it's worth sort of remarking. You've got the director of Nehru Planetarium here. You've got one of the country's largest newspaper publishers there. I saw him right there. Girish Agarwal ji is here. You've got an American diplomat. Mike Hankey is the Council of America is here. You've got lawyers, you've got restaurateurs, hoteliers, and our host also is here. I think I saw Nirja ji also just before this. So somehow you've got this ability to kind of cut it. And I think most importantly, my mother, I have had Express Addas at Express Towers, and she's not come for them. My mother-in-law, my sister from Calcutta, her husband, my wife's sister and her husband. This has never happened before. So somehow you're able to. So somehow you're able to cut across and kind of just do it. So that's all praise to you, and thank you for making the time. Such a pleasure to sort of have you. I think just to start with, just because of how diverse the crowd is, I think I can just start with a little provocative question. Quick show of hands. How many here think that the world today is a better place than it was when you were a teenager? How many people here think the world today is a better place than it was when you were a teenager? Quick show of hands. How many of you think India is a better place than it was when you were a teenager?
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
I said teenager, not like past 9 years. I'm saying teenager. Swamiji, you tell us, is the world a better place than it was, the generation before?
Yeah. First of all, my deep gratitude to you, Anant, for having me for this Express Adda. And the very name Adda was like a little scary. Like what happens at Addas, right? And then I come in and everybody's so quiet. I come up on stage, that quietness. I thought, is it the lull before the storm? But it's such an absolute pleasure and joy to be here. My gratitude again to Anant and the Indian Express Group. And of course, my deep and sincere gratitude to each and every individual and all the guests present here this evening. It's an absolute privilege to be here for this conversation. Is the world today a better place than it used to be? Or is the world not as good as it was when I was younger? Right? When you look at measuring things, there is objectivity and there is subjectivity. You can measure what's happening in the world based on objective parameters, and you can measure what's happening in the world based on your subjective experiences too. Everybody who's raising here, their hands here, saying that the world is a better place or India is a better place, if I might ask them to show their hands, giving them statistics, objective statistics, very few people might have those objective statistics to prove that the world or the country is a better place than before. But every single individual here has had a subjective experience of whether the world is a better place or not a better place, whether the country is a better place or the country is not a better place. So we measure whatever it is in the world based on an objective and a subjective experience. Objectivity is all about numbers, subjectivity is all about experience. I remember I was in Germany at Schloss Elmo for an event, and this was all diplomats from around the world, and I was meant to give a keynote there. I was staying at Schloss Elmo. I'm a vegetarian. Right? Not just a vegetarian, my faith, from the faith that I am, I don't even have onion and garlic in my food, like a very sattvic meal as we would call it. I was staying there for 3 days and I didn't get anything to eat. All I got was some fruits and nuts. And I was going nuts, eating fruits and nuts. I mean, you need some carbohydrates. And at the end of it all, I spoke to the chef, who was a German gentleman, and I asked him if he could make something for me. Finally, he ended up making some risotto, which was according to my dietary preferences. The bowl for the risotto was this huge, and the risotto was like this much. It's like I'm starving. 3 days of starving. I come up on Lufthansa Airlines. I settle myself down, and my host had forgotten to book my dietary preferences meals. Long flight. I'm starving. And then the stewardess, she came up to me. Sir, you haven't eaten anything. I said, but nobody booked my meals. He said, can I get you something at least? I said, I'm fine actually. Can I get you some fruits, please? I said, ma'am, I'm tired of fruits. Any nuts? In my mind, I said, please stop driving me nuts. She went to the galley. She came back in again and asked me, nothing at all. I said, ma'am, you remind me of my mom. Constantly, can you have this? You haven't eaten. I said, do you have a granola bar? She said, yeah, I can check. She went to the galley. She brought me a granola bar. I had it. But एक भूखे इंसान को कुछ खिलाना शेर को एक बूंद लहू पिलाने जैसा होता है. I'm hungry. That granola bar, I don't know where it settled down. I just buzzed again and I said, ma'am, another bar? She went to the galley. She said, sorry, sir, that was the last one. After 10 minutes, the lady came back in again. And she pulled out a granola bar out of her personal purse. She said, the galley doesn't have any granola bars, but this is my personal bar. And the reason she said it was a personal bar, she said, I wouldn't have mentioned, but I've just taken a bite. Now, in my mind, I thought to myself, na to tum shabri ho, na main Ram ho, that you give bitten berries to... She's taken a piece of the bar. So she kind of sensed that confusion on my face. He said, no, I just snapped a piece and ate it. I'm not kind of bitten into it. I took it. And to date, I have that granola bar with me. That is my subjective experience of Germany. Right? If you ask me to give objective stats of Germany, I'm not into statistics. I'll have to study a paper to say whether Germany is doing well or not doing well. My subjective experience of Germany was this lady, the German stewardess. And like I always say, you never, ever get a second chance to make the first good impression. You never get a second chance to make the first good impression. And here she was. Instantly just got into my mind. For me, Germany was the treatment I received on Lufthansa Airlines. So which is why when I answer questions like these, they're tricky. You can answer that based on objective parameters. You can answer that question based on a subjective experience. And most all of us who've raised our hands are talking about things a lot based on our subjective experiences, because there'll be others who have different experiences and may disagree with us on that. The only thing we couldn't disagree upon is the numbers when they are presented to us. Facts and figures and objective stats for which we'll need a presentation to say, is the world a better place than it was before? Is the country a better place than what it was before? Let's flash numbers here and then answer that question. But if we were to answer that question based on show of hands, each one of our opinions is a very subjective opinion. Right? And it's based on a very subjective experience as well. So if you want a very candid answer, we would have to look at objectivity. If you want to have a personal answer, we would have to look at an experience. And which is why there are things in the world that are better, and there are also things in this world that are not better. Is the world a better place than it was before? Yes. In certain aspects, I do feel it is. In certain aspects, I do feel it's not. Is the country a better place? Probably in certain aspects it is. In certain aspects it is not. And which is why I would say, let us look at the objective and the subjective and then gauge whether the world or the country or any other nation or humanity as by and large is better or not.
And Swamiji, Swamiji, do you get the confidence then that the world tomorrow will be a better place than it is today? I mean, I feel like the kind of the purpose, your sense of purpose, it'll be very hard unless you believe that, right? It'll be very hard for you to do what you do unless you believe that the world tomorrow will be better than it is today. So that faith, if it's so subjective, where do you get that faith from then?
Yes. Let me tell you an interesting story. There was a ship sailing on the ocean, and one of the sailors on the ship came back to the captain and said, "Captain, it's dark in the night, can't see anything. But Captain, we are in for a head-on collision. There's a ship right in front of us." The captain said, "Signal to them, you change course 20 degrees. Back came a reply, "We're not going to change course 20 degrees, you change course 20 degrees. The captain said to the sailor, "Send a message. We are a battleship. Send a message, I am the captain of the ship." Back came a reply, "Tell the captain, I am an ordinary seaman." The captain was infuriated. I am the captain telling him, an ordinary seaman's telling me, change course 20 degrees. The captain said, "Send a message, signal them. We are a battleship." Back came the reply, "Tell the captain, we are the lighthouse." Right. Now, you know something? A lighthouse doesn't move. A lighthouse stands in one place and gives direction to every ship. A lighthouse is not meant to align with the ship's sails. A ship is meant to align its sails with the lighthouse. And which is precisely why there are lighthouse universal principles that can make the world a better place. The more we are in alignment with those principles, the world will definitely be a better place. How many of you would agree that if we were kinder to each other and kinder to everybody, the world would be a better place? That's the lighthouse principle. We are called a humankind. And we should be a human and we should be kind, both. That's why we are called a humankind. How many of you would agree that if we were to be empathetic, sensitive to the needs of every person in the world would be a better place? Thank you. How many of you would agree that if we were to harmonize on what is common amongst all of us and not focus on the differences all the time, the world would be a better place? Thank you. How many of you would agree that if we were to come together as one force and not divide ourselves into multiple forces, the world would be a better place? Thank you. The more we align ourselves with the lighthouse principles, the world's going to be a better place. Which is why I often say, honest people are those who change their ideas to fit the truth. Dishonest people are those who change the truth to fit their ideas. You don't have the lighthouse to fit into your ship. You have to align your ship with the lighthouse. And the more I interact with people, the more I travel with people, travel around and meet people, the more I'm in conversation with people, the one thing I know, apart from a few hardwired crooks who are hardwired to be vicious, there will be. There have been, there will be, and there are such crooks who are hardwired to be vicious, who are hardwired to create trouble, who are hardwired to create menace in the society, in the world. But by and large, people have a strong element of goodness in them. Everywhere I go, I see people have goodness in them, including the stewardess on the aircraft who brought a granola bar, which was her own bar, to give me outside the call of her duty. How many of you had this experience, ladies and gentlemen? that we were all touched by someone's kindness? How many of you have seen more good in people than bad? How many of you believe that the world has more good in people than bad? And how many of us believe that we need to fan that good to make the world a better place? And that's what I believe in, to fan the good. There's a Native American story which talks about every individual having two dogs within, a good and a bad dog. And which dog barks louder? The dog that we feed. If you're going to feed the bad dog is going to scream, bark, and howl. But if you're going to starve that bad dog and start feeding the goodness in others, why are we constantly catching people in the society, in our organizations, in our personal relationships on the wrong foot always? What a chronic disease of the mind. What a chronic disease of the mind. Are people all that bad? Yes, we need to deal with the bad, undoubtedly. Yes, we need to discuss the bad, undoubtedly. Yes, we need to address the bad, undoubtedly. But are we so have we become chronically perverted to always catch people on the wrong foot? There's inherent goodness in the world, in people. And to be able to catch people doing right, to be able to fan that goodness is the way to make the world a better place. And yes, I do believe in that, and I do have faith in that. There have been people with whom we have dealt with. There have been people who are really into difficult times. You could see only the bad side of them. But by dealing with them rightly, is feeding the good dog and bringing the good side out as well. That's how we'll make the world a better place, really.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Swamiji, you said this, I mean, it's a beautiful story about this two people communicating in the middle dark, and then one turns out to be the lighthouse. And you thought the earlier two ships. Actually brings me to an interesting thought that, one is that, you as human beings, a lot of our conflicts, we are looking for the bad, and that's why we get into a conflict with somebody else on the opposite side. On the other hand, I just feel that, of late, the way we identify ourselves is so complicated. And then identities is kind of what start clashing. That identities kind of come into conflict. So in your story, I'm the captain, I'm a seaman, I'm a ship, and then finally you said, no, I'm the lighthouse. It's my identity as a lighthouse that's going to overrule this conflict because the lighthouse can't move. On a human-to-human interaction, there's a theory that the Portuguese brought in the last name in India. Earlier we were just first names, you're Ram. Where's Ram? You have to define Ram. Ram's from Ayodhya. So, the idea of the last name came in, you had identity came with the last name. Then you threw in language to it, you threw in a state to it, you threw in an organization to it. Now identity is so complicated. It's gender orientation, it is, it's not just it's not just the brand of shoe I'm wearing, it is, am I wearing a sneaker branded shoe, or am I wearing a leather branded shoe, a formal branded shoe? Am I an iPhone guy? Am I an Android guy? Everything is an identity, and we're constantly expressing these identities. And I think that's somehow where we kind of get into a conflict with somebody who kind of, believes that identity they don't resonate with or they don't like. And we kind of seem to seek out similar identities rather than just kind of, having. So is that it? Like the multiplicity of identity now, is that something that's making it harder for us to, see the good in people, like you said?
Yeah. Wow, this is really seeming like an Adda. Conspiracy Adda. How many of you ever gone surfing? Lovely. All right. Any of you gone scuba diving? That's a couple of more hands up. That's brilliant. Now, when you go surfing on the ocean, you will see that when the waves of the ocean go high up, the surfboard tosses up. Goes down is when it goes down. Every wave, the up and down of the wave, the movement of the wave is going to affect the surfboard and the individual on the surfboard. Whereas when you look at scuba diving, you're entering into a space where this turbulence on the top of the ocean doesn't exist. Anybody who's gone scuba diving can tell that that's probably one of the most peaceful experiences that you can have. It's just so quiet, so calm, so non-turbulent. Just completely getting into your zone, as you would call it, right? So on the surface, there's always this up and down, up and down, up and down. How many of you have been insulted at any point of time by somebody? All right, thank you. And those of you who are not raising your hands, you expect me to believe you, right? We have all been insulted. Somebody has said something. And how many of you felt bad? All right, thank you. How many of you were praised and appreciated by somebody at some point in time? Oh, lovely. And how many of you felt elated, uplifted? All of us. There was a man who came to his wife. It was her birthday. He said, she said, you didn't bring a birthday gift for me today? I said, of course I did. I said, what's the birthday gift? He said, you are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So what? He said, you are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. She said, what do you mean? He said, you are adorable. You're beautiful. You're calm. You're dexterous. You're enchanting. You're fabulous. You're gorgeous. You're humble. And he stopped there. He says, what about IJK? He said, I'm just kidding. No, sorry about that. My apologies. Sorry, I'm going to keep doing this all through, yeah? Now, look at how we are. Somebody admires us, the waves take us up. Somebody insults us, the waves toss us down. Correct? And the fact of the matter is, on the surface, we have multiple identities. Gender, for example, is an identity, and you mentioned gender orientation as well there, right? Gender is an identity, your profession is an identity, your community is an identity, your religious affiliation is an identity, your nationality is an identity. The particular role you play in your life is an identity. You're a father, you're a mother, you're a sibling, you're a daughter, you're a son, you're a husband, you're a partner, you're a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We are living a life of multiple identities.
But more than we had earlier?
I really don't think that we had more than, it's that we have more now than earlier. It's probably more pronounced than earlier. It's more explicitly pronounced than it was earlier. Identities we always had. It's not that people who, back in the day, it's not that they thought that, I'm okay wearing some ordinary flip-flops. Even they wanted something good. But it wasn't that you were defined by it. What was more important is who you are than what you have. What was important was who you are than what you are affiliated with. What was important was who you are than what your orientation is. And when we go to the bottom of the ocean, take a deep dive, that is our core identity. Who are you? Who are you? Right? Are you an engineer? Are you a doctor? Are you a journalist? Are you a musician? Are you a banker? Are you a monk? Are you a lady? Are you a man? Who are you? Didn't William Shakespeare say that the world is a stage, and on the stage, we're playing multiple roles. All of these roles, and very crucial and important roles. If you follow cinema and the entertainment industry, one of the most important aspects of craft, like a lot of times craft is missing a lot of times in the entertainment industry. But when you're looking at sheer craft in acting, there are people who have taken to what is called as method acting. And method acting is to engross oneself so much into the character that you start talking like the character, you start behaving like the character, you start living like the character. So when you come in front of the camera, it's like you are the person whom you're identifying with. But as soon as you leave the sets, you're leaving that identity behind to be yourself when you go back home. If I'm playing the role of XYZ, let's say Abraham Lincoln in a movie, and I go back home and I start behaving as Abraham Lincoln with my family. That doesn't work. So method acting is about getting immersed into those roles, because if you don't get immersed into that role, you will never be able to play that role with that 200% commitment to the craft. Which is why some of the most successful actors who have really made an impact in the industry, both in India and overseas, were method actors. I feel life is like method acting. We all have so many roles to play, but I am that individual who has a certain gender orientation. That gender orientation is not me. I am that individual who is playing the role of a certain professional. That profession is not me. I am that individual who has a certain nationality. That nationality is not me. You know what I mean? So on the surface, all of these roles exist. And the conflict of those roles creates those ups and downs in the waves. But when you go deeper into understanding what our true identity is, which is what I call often, scuba diving, that is where we need to all connect. Conflicts. Look, how many of you have fought in the last week with your spouse, girlfriends, boyfriends, partners, parents? Anybody fought? Okay, very honest. Some hands are really honest. Look at that gentleman. He's raising his hand like this. Dekho na sir idhar. His hand. Are we a world of clones? Do we want to live in a world of clones where everybody needs to agree with everybody else on every detail? Or do we need to also possess our own individuality and we agree to disagree respectfully? We agree to disagree respectfully. The way things are done sometimes so brash, so insensitive, right? If we can agree to disagree respectfully, conflicts are a part of life. Disagreements are a part of life. On that surface, identity clashes will happen. Do you think two spouses are going to agree on everything? Do you think two colleagues are going to agree on everything? Impossible. Disagreements, conflicts are a part of life. But we have to go beyond that to be able to enter into the deep depths of the ocean, to connect to something that is beyond our role. As long as we are only connecting to roles, conflicts are inevitable to happen because there will be differences. And it's okay, it's healthy to have those disagreements. But it's very crucial as well to connect to the deeper aspect of people. और इसीलिए मैं कई बार कहता हूँ जी, इंसान ना घर घर में जन्म लेता है, इंसानियत कहीं कहीं पे जन्म लेती है. Human beings are born in every home. Humanity is not born everywhere. Because if humanity was born everywhere, we would agree to disagree, we would have conflicts, but we would also connect on a much deeper level to know that this is the connection beyond our roles.
So, I mean, it's a obviously brilliant answer as always. If you were doing what you do on a daily basis, not living in Mumbai, but you were living in Kiev, if you were living in Ukraine, and you see that there is an attack on your territory, it is not an effort to kill you and wipe you out. It is an effort to control that territory. I'm just creating a distinction between sort of your life versus control of your territory. There, you as somebody who does what you do, you're professing humanity. We're just talking about humanity, and humanity is that one common thing that when we really scuba dive and go down, that's one common thing we feel all is humanity. But there, you're in conflict with nationality. Somewhere, this patriotism, nationality is coming in conflict with humanity. How does one even begin to resolve that? I mean, you can't really go to somebody who's got guns on the battlefield and say, "Listen, you're human," right? So, I mean, how do you begin to negotiate this as a way to solve a problem?
Yeah. Adda questions?
I promised you tough questions.
Anant's Adda questions. The three letters that have been a bane to humanity have been ego. And the example in context is Russia and Ukraine you're talking about. Go from the micro level to the macro level. Conflicts are all based on ego. Conflicts are all based on narcissistic self-interests. Conflicts are all based on one's definitions and ideas of how the world should function. My way or the highway. It's ego, it's narcissistic interests, is distorted ideologies that can create conflicts. We're talking about two nations here. Look at two individuals. A lot of times I feel we try to address macro issues. What if the macro was sorted? Micro is all going great? My question to everybody here and everybody who's watching, we sort out all the macro issues right? Everything's sorted, everything's peaceful, the wars end, everybody's doing everything right on the top, and everybody else in the countries and the world are all so sorted that on the micro level there's no conflicts, no disagreements, it's all peace, it's all love, it's all harmony, isn't it? Nobody teaches a hurricane how to destroy. Nobody teaches a cyclone how to sway things. Nobody teaches a tsunami how to wash things away. And nobody teaches a lady or a gentleman how to choose their life partner. Natural disasters just happen. I'm sorry. We're too much in the heat of some serious stuff here. Need to lighten the mood a little bit. Oh. Disasters are happening in relationships. Disasters are happening in business families. Conflicts are happening in business families. Conflicts are happening in individual lives. Conflicts are happening in religious communities. Conflicts are happening amongst nationalities. Where in the world do you not find conflict? Two dogs are fighting for territory. A dog goes and passes water on a pole, and if the other dog comes around there, Mera hai, tu nikal. He's barking. How can we deny the existential universal principle that defines the cosmos? Right? Which is precisely why, micro or macro, who's a good leader? A good leader, on whichever sphere. A good leader is a person who's willing to keep the ego aside for larger good. And I'm not talking about nations in particular, anywhere. How many of you realize that even in a personal family relationship, in order to keep things sober, settled, happy, peaceful, you have to say, Bhai, tera gadha aage, mera ghoda piche. How many of you have adjusted, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, thank you. How many of you have adjusted at your workplace to say, okay, we need to keep these people, adjust? Thank you. Good leadership is not being hell-bent on thinking one's own way, my way or highway, and not giving in to the false ego, right? Now, easier said than done. Anant, these questions are like, they are very touchy questions as well, and it's like easier said than done on a global platform when it comes to the war scenario. So many lives are being taken. But if you observe carefully, if there is no training for leaders and leadership to deal with the egos and focus on a higher purpose, history will keep repeating itself again and again and again. Today it's this, tomorrow it's going to be something else. Do you think things will change? And which is precisely why we are looking at people who learn how to focus on higher principles and not just personal vested interests or personal ideologies and opinions. For that, one needs a spiritual bent of mind. One needs a spiritual perspective. Right? Can't just politically resolve things saying, okay, now we adjust the egos and we are all kind of fine and we settle things down. Which is why traditionally, historically, where there were spiritual principles that we were focused on, one could keep the ego aside. If not, it kind of keeps going. The other way to do things is, of course, for people to come together as a humanity, raise their voice and do something about it. But these, like I said, these questions are not easy ones to answer. In principle, however, conflicts spring out of the ego. And if the egos are not kept aside, no matter what you do, no matter how much mediation happens, no matter how much discussion happens, people are hell-bent upon what they want to do.
It's a temporary fix. But do you think the world is more spiritual today than it was earlier? I mean, are we at least going down a path where people are embracing spirituality more? Or do you think it's less, actually, I mean, comparatively?
No, I think people are very much moving towards spirituality today. 200%. 200%.
This hall itself, I think, is proof of the fact
200%. And I think there's a time when you kind of realize that I've seen it all, done it all, and I need to look at more in my life. Spirituality has become like a means for a lot of people to sort their inner issues. That's one way, like it's like firefighting. Well, my mind is disturbed, let me meditate. My mind is really kind of taking me for a toss. Let me sit down and, just unwind. Yes, so that's a bit of firefighting. But more so, people who have achieved a certain level of success. I see a lot of successful people today. Success in the material sense, of course. Successful people today turning towards spirituality because, like Mark Twain said, there are two most important days in your life. The first is the day you were born, and the second is the day you find out why you were born, right? And I guess none of us came here to pay income taxes, did you? How many of you came here to pay income taxes, guys? No? Thank you. Oh, you did, sir? Wow. We have one gentleman who says I was born to pay income taxes. We should give him a loud round of applause for sure. Thank you, sir. How many of you are here to just clear our mortgages and financial liabilities? They're a part of our lives. What is it in the larger picture? What's in the larger scheme of things? What is it that I'm here for? So I see, if you see even on social media, one of the hashtags that is very popular is hashtag purpose. Hashtag purpose. And especially you look at the younger generation today, Gen Z, the millennials, they all want to look at this word called purpose, meaning. Minimalism has become a massive movement, right? That, okay, I want to live with less. They probably do not know what it means yet, but there is that drive within to look for meaning, to look for purpose, to create an impact. So spirituality no longer is just some firefighting to, deal with my mental issues. Spirituality today is also something that is a drive from within to look for meaning, purpose, and see what it is that I can do in this world and why am I here.
I'm surprised you said that there's hashtag purpose is a big trend on social media. I mean, obviously, I'm following the wrong handles because I certainly have not seen much of that. I mean, in fact, I think you are the exception to what does well on social media. I mean, you're a rare exception. I mean, I don't know how somehow you manage to package, deep thought, nuanced thought in 30 seconds. I think my entire newsroom needs to sort of get inspiration from that, from a news and information perspective. No, but does it alarm you sometimes this thing about how many followers have I got and the social media attention that it seems to be like now that has become the most important identity. It's just your own feeling of self-worth is kind of how many people are listening and following me. And just from there, there's also this need to kind of just be special. Like why are you special? Everybody, is asked this question, why everybody believes that they are special or they should be special, something special about them. What happens to the ordinary man? When can the ordinary, unspecial person kind of, what happens to him? Does he get just sort of irrelevant? Does he not get fulfillment or is it?
Yeah, wow. How many of you ever done a religious fast here in this gathering? A religious fast? Any fast in your life? Okay. If you want to fast today, 2023, just stay away from Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. Stay away from all of these just for one day. खुदा नीचे उतर के आएगा और बोलेगा बस कर पगले, रुलाएगा क्या? I mean, I'm going to ask you a touchy question. How many of you, when you wake up, the first thing you look at is your smartphone? An honest raise of hands, please. Thank you. All right, great. How many of you, when you go to bed, the last thing you see is your smartphone? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. How many of you have, after you've gotten up in the morning, gone to your Instagram handle and checked if my followers have increased? Oh wow, saints in the assembly. Or maybe how many likes my post has. Now, jokes apart, the fact of the matter is we are an age which is so much connected by this little device, right? And especially social media. And like you said, it's like a big identity today for people to have that, that I have these many followers, or people follow me, or people like my posts. What about others who are not on social media? Do they become irrelevant? Is social media a need? Here's what I usually say. A knife in the hands of a surgeon can save a life. A knife in the hands of a hoodlum can take a life. The same tool. It's the same tool. It depends on how it is used. If it's used rightly, it can save a life. If it's not used rightly, it can take a life. One surgeon was once operating a patient. He was on the operating table. He was holding a garland in his hand instead of the scalpel. But the patient said, Doctor Saab, garland for what? He said, if the surgery is successful, it's for me. If it's not, it's for you. Sorry about that. The scalpel is just a tool. Can be used to save a life, can be used to take a life. Everything is exactly like that, right? A lot of times I feel we need to tell ourselves and show ourselves who is in control here. Am I in control? Or is this little thing in control? And I'll tell you something. It's not about social media. It's about a mindset. If I start getting controlled by this little thing, I'm giving my control to everything around me as well. It's a mindset. It's percolating into every aspect of my life. But if I start taking charge here, I start taking charge of everything else everywhere. You can't segregate your life saying, here I am being controlled, but there I am in control. It's a mindset. If I take charge of using these things in moderation, I am going to eat my food in moderation too, because it's a mindset. I'm going to watch television in mind. Everything will be measured. But if I'm becoming an addict to this, you wouldn't realize that I'm also becoming an addict to food. Why? Because it's a mindset. And mindsets are agnostic. They don't see whether it's social media or a phone or food. They're agnostic. And which is precisely why I feel it's very crucial and important for us to learn to take charge. Guys, we need to take charge of our lives. How many of you have a chauffeur? Brilliant. How many of you, when you sit at the back of the car, can chill and relax? Brilliant. How many of you can watch a Netflix movie when you've been driven on a long drive in the city? Brilliant. How many of you can catch up with work or some phone calls or some meetings? Brilliant. How many of you can read Indian Express while you're sitting at the back of the car? Brilliant. How many of you look at the hoardings around? Some of us do, right? When you're sitting in the passenger seat, you can be very distracted, right? You could watch a movie, you could go to sleep, you could chat with somebody, you could call somebody, you could look at the billboard. If you're in the driver's seat, distraction is disastrous. When you're in the passenger seat, distraction is the consequence. When you're in the driver's seat, focus is the consequence. Life is like driving a car. And it's so crucial for us to move from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. My fitness is not my trainer's job. My fitness is my job by hitting the gym every morning. My fitness is not my nutritionist's job. My fitness is my job by controlling my tongue and not giving into that second piece of chocolate. My growth is not my boss's job. My growth is my job by hustling, working hard, getting better every single day and proving my worth. Why am I giving the responsibility for who I am meant to be to somebody else? And why am I giving the responsibility of how I feel and what my self-worth is to Instagram likes and followers? If I take charge of who I am, if I take charge of my life, my worth comes from my abilities, my talents, my composure, my worth. I don't need anything to make me feel worthy. If I need something to make me feel worthy, today I'll feel worthy and tomorrow I will not. Because today people will like my post and tomorrow they will not. Today people will follow me and tomorrow they will unfollow me. Instagram has the unfollow thing there, no? They can unfollow you, right? And which is precisely why the more I am dependent on others for my worth, I'm the surfer on these waves of the ocean, constantly going up and down. My mood is swinging up and down. But the more I take charge of who I am and I do not define my worth by the likes and dislikes on Instagram. I mean, can you imagine somebody sitting out there in Mexico dislikes my post? He or she doesn't even know my situation. How deceptive is social media that I can pose for a picture with my phone and have the best lighting and get a click and then edit that picture. Edit that picture and then post it, saying, having the best time of my life. Putting out that story. Do you even know that probably that entire exercise was just to camouflage the chronic depression that person is going through? Do you even know that? That the person who's showing it all up so big on social media is probably such a wreck inside. We don't even know. So it's such a deceptive thing. And we're starting to take this as the reality. We're taking people's measure of success based on how many followers they have and how many likes they have. And you can buy likes and followers, sadly. What a business that is. You can buy likes and followers and tell people, itna follower बढ़ गया, अब खरीदा है किसको मालूम पड़ता है. And now you can subscribe to a blue tick on Instagram. Twitter already had it. So all these influencers who had a blue tick by who they were are like everybody who has 30 followers can subscribe to a blue tick and can say, I am like Mr. Such and Such. What a deceptive world that is. So I so truly feel that we really need to realign our thought processes. We are all gifted in such unique ways. Trust me, everybody has something so unique. But the problem is this comparison. How many of you have compared yourself with others? Oh, thank you. My God. When two couples meet in India, the ladies look at each other's jewelry and the guys look at each other's wives. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. There was this guy who was, came back from college. He'd failed his exams. And the father was yelling at him. देख लुखे तेरे क्लास में वो मेरी पढ़ती ना, देख उसको, देख फर्स्ट आई ये लुखे, देख, और तू फेल हो गया. कैसे फेल हो गया? He said, देख देख कर ही फेल हो गया, पापा. You've been saying देख 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 100 times. Right. Now, I want to ask you an honest question. Be very honest here. How many of you, at some point in time in your life, probably when you were younger, were told, look at that person, how hard they study or whatever else, and you don't do this? Thank you. How many of you were told that the same thing, comparing you to a sibling, that look at the sibling doing this and look at what you're doing? I can't get the hang of it. We complain now about comparison, but the bug is installed from the beginning. देख उसको देखने की बजाय खुद को देख कब देखेंगे? So if the देख, we're always looking at others. Oh, he bought a new car. Oh, their net worth is higher. Oh, he's doing well. Their social media is good. This is that. This just takes it to the next level. Do you think this comparison wasn't existing before social media? Social media has just taken it to the next level. And the sad part of the story is we derive our worth by comparing ourselves to somebody else. Oh, look, at least I'm better. One of my friends, he was celebrating in college. I was still studying. I said, why are you celebrating? The results are out. I said, why are you celebrating? So, I failed in 2 subjects. I said, idiot, you failed in 2, right? Why are you celebrating? He said, no, this other friend of ours, he failed in 4. So I'm better, I failed in 2, so I'm deriving my worth from what others are. And which is precisely why I feel it's so crucial, so important to align our thought processes to start digging deep, to find out our own value and our own worth. Then social media is a great tool. It's a great tool to connect. It's a great tool to express. It's a great tool to make impact. It's a great tool to sell your business. It's a fantastic tool. But if you're deriving your worth from validation that comes from social media, sorry to say, then it has crippling effects on our mental health. Yeah. But if you're going to utilize that as a tool by not looking for our worth there, regardless of whether people... See that song, that popular song, shall I sing it?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course.
Oh, my favorite song. Let me sip, sir. Sorry. Malik sir is here. Sorry, sir. I'm going to hum a few lines in front of him. Sorry. कल और आएंगे नगमों की खिलती कलियां चुनने वाले, मुझसे बेहतर कहने वाले, तुमसे बेहतर सुनने वाले, कल कोई मुझको याद करे, क्यों कोई मुझको याद करे, मशरूफ ज़माना मेरे लिए क्यों वक्त अपना बर्बाद करे, मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ, पल दो पल मेरी कहानी है, पल दो पल मेरी हस्ती है, पल दो पल मेरी जवानी है. What are we arrogant about? What are we arrogant about? A tiny spot in the universe who's existing for a tiny amount of time and thinks that he or she is the be-all and the end-all? What are we so arrogant about? We have been given a special gift. We have been given a special worth. We should utilize it in great humility, knowing that whether or not people like it, I'm very true to myself by expressing what I've been gifted with. Which is why don't we always say, work not for an applause but for a cause. Work not to impress but to express, right? It's very crucial. When self-expression becomes your purpose, numbers follow as a consequence. When numbers become your purpose, self-expression is gone out of the window and the numbers are anyways fluctuating all the time. But when self-expression is your purpose, even if the numbers fluctuate, I already know that this is what I'm doing it for. And the numbers come, why not? We'll reach out to a larger number of people. That makes sense?
Wonderful. Wonderful. I really wish I wasn't doing this. I would have much preferred just sitting back and listening and just absorbing rather than sort of having to, because it's just so much fun to listen rather than ask. So I think I'll ask a couple more questions, then we get to the audience. We have a great audience here and I want to give them the time. Swamiji, I just come back. This whole sort of young, this whole young trend of the cancel culture, the hyper wokeism that we see. And I'm not saying this is an expression of that, but you were talking about self-worth from others. I think probably about a year ago, the first time where I got an email from someone, and at the bottom it said them/him, and I obviously, just a year ago, and I'm kind of exposing my age a little bit when I ask you this, but um, is this thing, I'm going to tell you what pronoun to call me with. I mean, these kind of things, are these me trying to derive a certain, like, if you don't call me this pronoun, I'm going to get offended. I mean, are we going a little overboard? I'm not saying the pronoun thing is going overboard, but I'm just asking you, are we heading to a path where, we choose now so much of what we want to be referred to, how we want to be addressed, how we want others to conduct themselves with us, not how we conduct ourselves? Is this a trend that you think is going to last? Is it something which we should look at with sort of a tolerant empathy kind of a perspective? Do you look at it that way? Or do you think of it as something which is, a hyper-individualistic sort of way of...
Just taking a deep breath before I answer, grounding myself.
I think I've asked you 4 questions in one.
Oh, you actually have. This whole thing about progressive and regressive is what I would call it. A progressive civilization that believes in a certain ideology and a regressive civilization that doesn't identify with that. Let me share with you a very personal story. Right? I have a friend, and this gentleman, he had a brother, younger brother, extremely smart, highly intellectual, like sorted kind of a person. When it comes to material success, you know that this gentleman is just going to scale heights in his life. Absolutely sorted. I had met him before, incredible gentleman. He didn't identify himself as a man. He constantly had this thing from within that I was born to be a woman. Right? Coming from a very conservative family. And in a conservative family, to even express this at that time meant a lot. He couldn't. The escape route out of this whole thing was leaving the family to pursue higher studies and going overseas. है ना? मैं कई बार कहता हूँ ना, कुछ लोग अपने सपनों के लिए अपने अपनों से दूर रहते हैं और कुछ लोग अपने अपनों के लिए अपने सपनों से दूर रहते हैं. That's what the reality is. How many of you have realized कि अपनों के लिए मैंने अपने सपनों को छोड़ दिया था? Maybe a few people sitting here would do that. Right, wrong? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. और कुछ लोग होते हैं जो अपने सपनों के लिए अपनों को छोड़ के चले जाते हैं. Is it right, wrong? No right, wrong. Everybody has their own journey, right? And I remember well, this gentleman, it was his going overseas was just an escape route. That's about it. For self-expression. He had identified himself internally not to be a man. He went, I'm not going to say where, he went there and started his self-expression journey of being a female. Consulted psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors to figure out if he could get a sex change done. He did it. Unknown to the family. Her the brother was now a sister. And it was the very first time the brother who was now a sister was meant to come back home to India. Guys, it's very easy to sit here and have a conversation like this. There are a lot of dynamics that go down there at the grassroots level where people have to go through what they have to go through, both from the person who has changed himself or herself and for the family who is meant to deal with it as well, especially in a conservative society. I remember meeting him. I'd seen him as a guy. I saw him as a girl. The gentleman, my friend, of course, very close bonding with the brother. So now, very close bonding with the sister because gender didn't matter. The person had never connected to the gender. The person had connected to the person. The same soul, with the same mindset, with the same affection, with the same love. with a changed physiology, right? Family had a tough time, of course. This lady now went back to wherever she was living, got married, got divorced, and then this friend of mine, his father passed away. And up until then, only the family of 5 people knew about this. But now the large family was going to come for the funeral and the last rites. And the mother said, we cannot have her come for the funeral. Can you imagine what that means? With a man whom you've shared a bond as your father, and now you're told that you cannot come for the funeral. My mom, simple lady, I come from a lower middle class family. My mom was born and raised in a small little village in Maharashtra. I was in her womb when she was in her 11th grade. And as soon as I was born, she gave up her college. Barely speaks a little bit of English. Right. But this friend of mine had a very good deep connect with my mom as well. And I didn't know the story up until a year back. I had no clue. I knew about the gender change and all that. But how my mom got involved, I had absolutely no idea. When this lady, the mother was thinking that we can't have her over, this friend of mine approached my mother. They had a close connection and they used to meet and they used to chat. And this friend of mine requested my mother if he could talk to his mom. And I was absolutely taken aback by a surprise, a shock rather, that my mother, who comes from a small tiny village in Maharashtra, who barely speaks English and is not exposed to the social media culture of acceptance and tolerance, my mother, who doesn't wear modern clothes and wears a simple little sari, my mother, who speaks a language, English words, a few words that are broken, her signature is in Devanagari script, was talking about acceptance, empathy, kindness, sensitivity, and giving not a boy or a girl, but a child, the right to see her father. I was like, wow. The story I got to know much later, of course. I didn't know this. So then, of course, they had her come. It was then my mother told this gentleman, said, how long are you going to hide this fact? At the end of the day, a human being is a human being. Human being first always. Change of gender orientation, religious affiliations, nationalities, this or that, doesn't cancel the fact that we are all human beings. We are a race of human beings and we are meant to deal with each other as human beings. I was actually astonished my mother did that. And sometimes I find liberal people who think they are very progressive call my mother regressive. Why? Because she can't speak a certain language. Why? Because she dresses up in a simple sari. Why? Because the signature is still in the Devanagari script. Why? Because she cannot flaunt herself in a certain way. Why? Because she doesn't talk these terms which are all flaunted in these gatherings with all these big terminologies and big jargon. And I saw my mother to be the most progressive lady. Yet others, I find people who go by the liberal mindset, the apparent liberal mindset, to be the most conservative because they are imposing that ideology. What's liberal and what's conservative? What's a progressive mindset and what's a regressive mindset? A progressive mindset is kindness, empathy, and sensitivity to the needs of others. That's a progressive mindset. You could dress the way you dress, you could speak the language you speak, you may not use any bloody jargon in your conversation. Doesn't matter a bloody damn. Doesn't matter a bloody damn. That's called progressive. Where you have sensitivity and empathy to the needs of others. And here we have people who throw such fancy jargon, not having kindness, not having empathy, not having tolerance, not having sensitivity to the other choices that people have made. If my mother chooses to dress up in a certain way and speak in a certain way and chooses to touch the feet of my father or her father-in-law, is that regressive? Doesn't every human being on planet Earth have the choice to live the way they want? Should any bloody individual or ideology define what is progressive and regressive? Why? Why? Here's a lady who I saw who had such human sensitivity and empathy. Progressiveness is a mindset, not jargon. It's a mindset. And which is why, in a scenario like this, the first thing that we need is kindness, empathy, sensitivity to understand each other's needs. Under what circumstances that man became a woman, you and I don't know at times. Under what circumstances an individual is impelled or propelled to use a certain pronoun, you don't know the history. It's so easy for many of us to come to conclusions based on what is seen to the human eye in the immediate present without having seen what the journey has been. It's taken a long time for that individual and hell of a lot of struggle to be able to go through whatever it is that they're going through, be able to make these drastic decisions in life. You know what I mean? So I feel this is extremely important. The second aspect is also very crucial, I feel, which is no imposition. Conservative, regressive mindsets means imposition. If I say that, okay, there are the conservative types, the literal conservative types who will say, oh, gender orientation, no, it's all sinful, it's all this, it's all that. You are imposing a mindset without understanding the person's journey. And I'll also see the liberals say the same thing. It's all become a religion. Dogmatic religion. Liberalism today is a dogmatic religion being imposed and put down somebody's throat. Where is the freedom to choose? Can't I choose to wear this cloth? Should I be bloody, judged by the color of my cloth? Or what I say? Should I be bloody, judged by what I wear on my forehead or what I live by? Should I be living in a society where I've lost the choice because there's one narrative that this is liberal, so this becomes conservative? This is progressive, so this is regressive? How? Don't you think that we all need to have our own space, ladies and gentlemen? Don't you think that we all as human beings have the right to choose how to live our lives? If I choose to put this on my head, it is my choice. You are nobody to tell me this is progressive or regressive. Got it? Got it? If somebody has put a pronoun there, that is their choice. I'm nobody to tell this is progressive or regressive. Don't define that as progressive, this as regressive, this as progressive, that as regressive. Every individual has a journey. And in that journey, it is very crucial and very important to not start imposing ideologies on others as dogmas. Progressive thinking, number one, is kindness, empathy, and sensitivity. Progressive thinking, number two, is no imposition of ideologies on others in whatever space. And number three, progressive thinking is about respect. Respect for others' choices, giving them that space. One of my concerns at times that comes up to my mind is this kind of a thing that kind of exists in the world. The last thing I would want to see is people subscribing to something because of it being a fashion. People subscribing to something because of it being socially acceptable. People subscribing to something because of it being a way to build up your social capital. Cashing on something. If that's the way you use an ideology, as a trend, as a fashion, or as something that, is just socially acceptable, or something because it just helps me do what I do in much better ways, because if I say something, that means I get mileage out of it. I've lost it then. But there are going to be people like this friend's brother, right, who are extreme. I know that man, trust me, extremely genuine. And I'm like my mother's son, who loves to give people their choices, who loves to respect people's choices, who loves to give space to people, who loves to not intrude, but also help people understand that let it be a well-informed, deliberated choice and not just fitting into a trend, social acceptability, or drawing mileage. If that be the case, don't you think we all deserve to choose our lives? Don't you think we all deserve to choose our lives? I must tell you that there will be a few people who will have things like that, and it's fine. Nobody becomes a bad person or a human being because of a certain choice that one has made. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. Well, sorry, I just got a little too heated up. My apologies. No, sorry about that.
I do want to ask one last question, but let's see if it comes out from the crowd, and if it doesn't, then I'll come back to it. Quick. Warm here, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite. I mean, can you please get the air conditioning, if it's possible, get going? Can I have a show of hands where the questions are from, just to kind of get the ball rolling? Yeah, please, Dr. Pranjpe, Vivek here, Vivek ji, yeah, please.
Swamiji,
Please introduce yourself and keep it short.
I'm Dilip Mehta. Anant, thank you very much for inviting us today. Swamiji, absolutely life transformation, very enlightening, very enriching. I bow down to you, sir. Swamiji, I am one of the survivor of 26/11 at Taj.
Oh.
I was a hostage 15 years ago. I took 6 months of counseling and I was traumatized. Now, taking that clue forward, most of us in this room would like to know about how does one address the issues relating to daily life of stress and trauma, and two things that we all would like to take away from here, Swamiji. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You want to answer one, or you want to take two at the same time?
I'll probably ask one question, answer one. I'm like a dumb guy, with a very less bandwidth, so I'll just answer one at a time. If I might ask all of you, what is the weight of this phone, like approximately? 200 grams? 250 grams, maybe? Imagine if I were to hold this phone on my palm, just about 250 grams. But if I were to hold it for the next 20 minutes of my answering questions, probably start hurting my wrist a little bit. If I were to hold it for the rest of the evening without putting it down, I'm going to really start hurting my wrist a lot. And if I were to hold this phone on my palm for the rest of the week without putting it down, my wrist will probably start getting a little numb, isn't it? Now, it's not so much about the weight of the phone, it's for how long am I carrying it on my palm, right? Our past memories, our stresses, what's happened to us, is like something that we are lugging in our mind constantly. It could be a small thing, it could be a big thing. But when we are lugging something in our mind constantly, it's like exactly like holding this phone on my palm non-stop. It's going to start affecting my wrist. If I'm going to think about this relative of mine, friend, this book, the stories in my book, Energize Your Mind, the second book, where I talk about how this relative of mine came up on my father's funeral day. My father's body still lying there, and this gentleman says that I was the cause of my father's death in front of everybody. Now, who has gotten an insult like that? Where you're called the cause of your father's death in a public forum, and my father's body is not even cremated yet. Now, every single time I see this guy, you know how it becomes like a stimulus, a trigger to bring back those past memories? An entire chapter in the book is about dealing with these memories, right? PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, just so much in there, just like this all the time. This is exactly what I'm doing to my mind, exactly what I did to my palm. My memories, my anxieties, my past impressions is doing this. Now imagine you can't really take it off. Will you be able to take the 2611 experience off your mind completely? Never. Will I be able to take out that statement that this gentleman made about my father's death, saying I was the cause of my father's death? Never. And each one of us has our own stories and memories and impressions that we have in our mind. We're not going to be able to take it out of our minds ever. Somebody hurt you deeply and there was a heartbreak somebody had in a relationship. How is a person going to take it off from their mind? You cannot take it off completely, ladies and gentlemen. But I know one thing. I can at least occasionally keep it down if I can. That'll make my wrist feel a little better because it's going to come back up again. Here I've consciously chosen to put the phone down. It's not jumping back on my palm. But in my mind, I might consciously try to purge my thoughts out, but it's going to come back in my mind again. But even if for those 20 minutes, an hour, a day, if I can keep it away, my mind is feeling relaxed and better. Which is precisely why a mental detox is extremely essential and imperative to be able to keep a stable frame of mind. And how does one detox one's mind? There's so many ways to do it. Meditation, of course, is one way to do it. But one very, very, very powerful way to do it is journaling. Journaling. Journaling is an extremely powerful way of pouring out everything that you have in your mind on paper. And absolutely doing it free flow. No editing, no censoring. If I get a swear word, I'm writing a swear word there. Just make sure whoever you're using that swear word for doesn't get the paper in their hand. That's all you'll need to make sure. So you burn it, tear it, throw it, whatever you need to do, but let it come out. There's tremendous power and potential in taking this out, right? And again, journaling doesn't ensure it's not going to come back up again. But the very fact that you have a relaxed mind, even if it comes back, you're in a better position to deal with it because you've taken it off for a while. Now imagine if the phone were on your hand and you were just not able to take it off at all, even after journaling. I'm just going to hold this microphone like this. You mind doing that? Thank you so much. If the phone is like this, imagine if somebody else puts a palm down there and shares that burden along with you. Now your wrist is taking half of the weight and somebody else is taking half of that weight. That is the power of confiding, opening your heart, sharing your troubles with somebody and seeking help. You know what? The one thing that I always love to say, we don't have to struggle alone. Do we have to struggle alone? Why are we in our own shells? Why are we thinking I have to do it myself? There is help available if we seek it. Seek and thou shalt find. Knock and the door shall open. All right. I tell the story often of a gentleman who had a 5-year-old girl, his daughter, and both of them were walking on a road, like in a countryside road, and there was a massive storm, and there was a huge tree that had fallen on the road. Huge, humongous, like huge trunk. And this little 5-year-old said to her dad, Dad, do you think I can move this tree away? The father said, yes, darling, if you use all your strength. So the girl went and gave every bit of her energy to push the tree. Obviously, the girl was a 5-year-old, the tree was huge. It wouldn't move. She came back to the father and said, Dad, I can't move it. The father said, darling, I told you, if you use all your strength, you can most certainly move the tree. She went again, tried, she couldn't, exasperated, frustrated. She came back to the father and said, Dad, I can't do it. The father said, look, darling, I told you to use all your strength and you're only using yours. Is your strength alone all your strength? No. I am here as your father, right? You could have turned to me and said, Dad, can you help me? I didn't ask you to use your strength. I asked you to use all your strength. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of times we are only using our strength to deal with a lot of our issues. Let us start using all our strength And in that all our strength, start identifying those people, those individuals who can really help us deal with what we are going through. So yes, journaling, meditation can help us detox, but also support systems can help us deal with it. इसलिए मैं कई बार एक हिंदी में मेरा बहुत फेवरेट शेर है, कई कॉन्क्लेव्स में सुनाया मैंने, इसको आज भी सुनाई देता हूँ, बहुत बढ़िया अच्छा लगता है मुझे. कहते हैं कि छोटे से दिल में गम बहुत है, छोटे से दिल में गम बहुत है, जिंदगी ने दिए जख्म बहुत है, कब की मार डालती है जालिम दुनिया हमें, कम वक्त इन दोस्तों की दुआओं में दम बहुत है. राइट, you know, that support system is something that will probably help us deal with what we are going through way better than if we were to struggle alone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Please go ahead. Up Bilengi. Hello. Get mic in the second row here also, then after that. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's on, sir.
Second row.
Yeah. My name is Arvind Paranjpe. I'm the director of Nehru Planetarium here.
Oh, lovely.
And before I ask the question, I would just want to say something to Anant, that if he would have come about 20 years ago, he would have probably put Rajat Sharma out of the business. Seeing his questioning. Well, my question is that you talked about detox. I would say everyone come to the planetarium, sit under the star during the daytime,
Right.
and it's a good enough detoxing thing for you. The question is that I keep hearing about people from nakshatras, astrology, depending upon their horoscope. I so often call them a horoscope rather than horoscope. So, horoscope. And then people tend to forget one simple, beautiful shlok or advice that your namesake has given, karmanye vadhikaraste. So we have in our scriptures such a great thing, and people forget that particular thing, that do your karma. So do you come across such thing, or what is your take on astrology?
Wow. The standard Adda questions. Anant's done now. The audience is now. The audience are the Adda walas now. I have always looked at astrology as a science. I do. The problem is the scientists who don't understand the science at all. Right? Pardon me? My perception. So when I look at astrology, for example, I look at astrology as a mathematical calculation. Right? The stars are in a certain position. That's a mathematical calculation. You have a stock market. In the stock market, the share prices are going up and down. That's a very objective calculation. But all the stock analysts are giving their subjective interpretation of that objective number. Now, as long as it's limited to the objective number, it's a science. As long as you bring in the subjective interpretation, it's my personal experience that I'm adding to it. You know what I mean? So when I look at astrology, for example, I look at it from an objective perspective in terms of the numbers, the calculations. When I look at the astrologers, then I'm also looking at it as a subjective experience. For example, a stock analyst has 30 years of experience, and a stock analyst has 5 years of experience, going to look at that number in a very different way. How will the stock fare in the stock market? Their analysis of the same number will be a very different thing. So which is where the subjectivity comes in. To me, astrology was never a science of prediction. To me, astrology was a science of figuring out your psychophysical nature based on the numbers. If I can understand who I am better, like in the world you have so many books and models on understanding personalities. Hundreds of models where you can answer questionnaires and figure out what your psychophysical nature is. Here's one more model. Look at it just like a model. In a slide with a slightly different twist. If I could figure out what my psychophysical disposition is, I will be able to do what you said, my karmanye vadhikarasti, in better ways. So then it becomes not a predictive science that's saying, or a predictive ideology which says that, okay, this will happen or that will happen. It becomes a tool to help you navigate through the world and do what you're doing better. Right? I often look at astrology as Google Maps, as satellite navigation systems. A satellite navigation system can at best tell you if I'm moving from point A to point B, it's going to give me the different routes to reach to point B. It'll probably say on route A, this much traffic, delayed by 5 minutes, delayed by 10 minutes, traffic here, traffic there, da da da. If I'm in the UK, if I'm driving in London, my sat-nav system, Google Maps probably does. I don't know if it does, but the other sat-nav systems in England do show even the hidden cameras saying camera ahead, so slow down, you know. So it can give me the things on the road. Imagine if I were to sit in one place just because I have the sat-nav routes given and not drive. Am I reaching destination B? No, I'm not. If I have to reach destination B from point A to point B, all the routes given by the sat-nav system are simply facilitations to move on in the journey. But I have to drive. I have to drive cautiously. That is what in Sanskrit is called as Purushartha, which is my own effort to do what I do. So this is how I look at astrology, as something that evaluates and helps you understand yourself better, and something that gives you a route. So these are the bumps, these are the things here. But to say that, oh, मेरे कुंडली में लिखा है कि मैं बिलियनर बनने वाला है और कोई मेहनत नहीं करेगा तो बिलियनर ऐसे ही थोड़ी ना आने वाला है. It can give you a route. You have to work hard and drive the car. I see people whose horoscopes apparently are the most like 36 ka 36 gun matched. Have 36 jhagdas every day. I've seen that. And I've seen people, because see, if things are matching, if that be one aspect of compatibility, I'll tell you, relationships don't happen because of a number that has been matched. Relationships happen because you make them work. You have to make them work. It's hard work. You get admitted in a good university, doesn't mean you become the topper of the university. I have to work hard. I have a pot of gold lying right there right under my house. I'm going to have to dig it and pull the gold out. And which is precisely why there is this destiny free will paradox always. Right? What is destiny? Situations that come to me unsought is destiny. I didn't seek it. I didn't run after it. I didn't run after Anant to say, call me for the Adda. I didn't seek it. I didn't ask him. We didn't have a conversation, nothing. He reached out to me. I can say millions may be attempting to be here and they haven't gotten to be here. I didn't attempt to be here and I've gotten to be here. I'll probably use the word destiny, that this is what has been brought to me. Imagine if I don't take this offer up. Or if I take this offer up and come and just blurt any crap here. I have misused my free will. So what comes to me unsought is destiny. My response to that is never destiny. My response to that is free will. I need to work hard. I need to make the most out of what I have at my hand, you know. And therefore, I think it's very, very crucial to not become, not get into this crippling philosophy and ideology of सब मेरा कर्मा है, सब इधर लिख के आया है. कुछ लिख के आया भी है, तुम करो ना कुछ उसका. Two people have these opportunities. One is saying the letter O at the end of the word zero. And another person is seeing the letter O at the beginning of the word opportunity. Both are looking at O. But one is seeing the end, one is seeing the beginning, one is seeing zero, other is seeing opportunity. Right? So I think that is where Purushartha or free will is. We need to utilize our free will. Otherwise, if everything is destined and predestined, then where is the scope for human endeavor? Where is the scope for human development? Where is the scope for unveiling and unfolding human potential? You know what I mean? So that's how much I then believe in astrology. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic it has been. In fact, all of us have our biases, some religious biases, professional biases. Do you have any political biases? And if not, how do you actually afford to be living in and around such biases and not have any?
मैंने नहीं बोला पूछने के लिए. Just clarify.
ये सवाल आप अनंत से पूछ दीजिए. Next question, please. Anant will answer that question. I think that's the waters I wouldn't like to tread, and if that's all right. Yeah? Sure. Thank you.
Anuji?
Swamiji, namaskar.
Namaskar ji.
Honor to meet you in
Oh,
person.
pleasure, sir.
Absolutely delighted, sir. And I would thank Anant because Anant always calls me to the best he does ever. And I'm the one who phones him up and says, "Mujhe bulaya karo." So I'm not as, my luck is not as strong as yours. But after having said that, Swamiji, there is this line that you sang, "Main pal do pal ka shayar hu, pal do pal meri," coming from the music point of view. A song written by Sahil Ludhianvi, if I'm not wrong, and composed by Khayyam Saab. So in spite of the fact that we know that hum pal do pal ke shayar hain, pal do pal hamari kahani hai, what is it that drives a human being to keep on excelling in spite of knowing that whether he'll be remembered or not, or everything that you earn, that you keep, and then you know that not going to go away with you? What drives you to that madness to the point where you spoil your health all the time? There are times when you think, or like what I was hearing from you is, कि यार छोड़ भी दिया करो कुछ, अपनी जिंदगी जीना सीखो. Try to live your life. But what drives the person to excel always? Is it a passion within him or her? Or is it that something keeps on driving you all the time and that you don't want to listen to the incredible answers you have given? I mean, I'm just thinking right now, कि मैं यहाँ से निकलूँगा and I'll be ready. मेरा दिमाग में गाना चल रहा है and I have to go there. I've heard Swamiji, it was a great evening. But I want to follow what you're saying. So how do we do that?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question, sir. First of all, such a great pleasure meeting you. It's an honor and pleasure meeting you. I think life is a journey. And in the journey called life, we are constantly evolving as human beings. Sometimes people ask me, what does this text, like he was quoting a text from the Gita, what does this text mean to you? And I often say that 20 years back, the text meant something else to me, and today, 20 years later, the text means something else to me, because my life's journey has moved on. I'm different. Psychologically, I'm a different human being. Not from the perspective of my nature, but how my mindset is, my thought processes, my beliefs are evolving. Which is why to say that I'm an evolved being will be haughty, extremely high-headed. Life is a journey. We are constantly learning and constantly evolving on our journey, on our path. Now, when it comes to the motive behind what we are doing, like you were mentioning about a motive, is it the passion that drives excellence? We know that we need to live. We know that we need to live in the moment. We know that we need to balance our lives. We know that there are other aspects of life that need attention. Yet sometimes crazily, madly, insanely, we keep chasing certain goals, right? What could be the motive? One motive, I'm not going to say less evolved, more evolved. I'm going to say at certain point in evolution of our human journey is a very material motive. And the material motive is name, fame, money, privileges, benefits, luxuries. Is it wrong? No. It's a part of my evolution. I have learned how to stop being right and wrong. Constantly being in that trap of this is right, that is wrong, this is right. Why can't I see that this is a point in that journey and this is probably that was needed for this person to grow to the next point? Right? It's very easy for me to sit here and say this guy is so materialistic because he's just after money, he's just after fame, he's just after doing this. But this is exactly what his point in this evolutionary journey is at this point. Right? We know that we don't remain like that all the time. Sometimes, because of the company of people who inspires us to think differently, we evolve. Sometimes we come across life situations that jolt us. We evolve. We start thinking, oh, this is important and I'm going to do it, but there are other important things in life. Right? How many of us during COVID, those 2 years, felt that life has many more important things to do than just run after money and popularity? We all came to that conclusion. And COVID's gone away, we kind of come back to the same track again and the same routine stuff starts happening again because it's human nature to forget. It's human nature to kind of go back to old patterns again and again. We transform, we evolve, but we slip back again. How many of us have done it? We have our habits, we try to change, we slip back. We stand back up again, fight, work on it, we slip back, and we stand back up again and we fight. And that's how slowly we evolve to the next level, where the chances or the possibilities of slipping back are minimal or none. But it's a journey, it takes its own sweet time, you know. So I feel that materialistic goal, that motive that I want to become popular, I want more money, I want these luxuries, I want these facilities, fine, no problem. That's a part of your life at the moment. Add a little bit of balance to your life. At least somebody can tell them, balance it a little bit with paying some attention to yourself. Because if you don't have your oxygen mask on your face, you can't put the oxygen mask on anybody else. You're not going to be able to do anything properly if you don't pay attention to yourself. Right? So pay attention to yourself. Now you move on to the next point in your journey. You suddenly start thinking, nahi yaar, ye sab kya hai ye? Bahut kar liya. Done all, seen it all, done it all. There must be more to life than this. We start looking for deeper things. Right? We start looking for deeper things. We probably are doing this exact same thing still. We're still probably chasing music. Or still probably chasing whatever we were doing before. But the motive has changed. There has been a sense of pause. There has been a sense of calm. You're functioning from a very different space now. It's not that you're doing different things, but you're functioning from a different motive and a different internal space. You evolve a little more in that journey. Right? You start thinking, my motive is, I don't care money comes or not. I don't care whether it's just about finding that balance in my life and self-expression. Because I love music, or I love speaking, or I love running, so I'm doing it, not just for money, but it's my self-expression. So from my motives to gain something, I move to self-expression, and from self-expression, I move to impact. Where the motive now is not so much how much I get out of it. The motive now is not just self-expression. The motive is how can I give the best back to the world. Now, it's all an evolutionary journey. And is it progressive and linear? Not necessarily. You might slip back to one of the previous steps again as well every now and then, and it's fine. That's completely fine. But
it's higher.
Pardon me?
But there is a hierarchy.
There are, right?
Yes.
Because that's what fulfills you deeply. More than just a materialistic goal, this impact fulfills you deeply. I was in London, and they took me to, we were walking around, me and my friend, we went to the St. Paul's Cathedral. And the head priest there, whoever, I can't remember his name, so we met. And he told me the story of that cathedral. The archaeologist there, some 1700s, he was walking at the construction site, St. Paul's Cathedral, and nobody knew who he was. So there were three bricklayers laying bricks. So he came to the first bricklayer saying, what are you doing? He said, I'm laying bricks. A couple of yards away, he moved ahead and he saw another bricklayer laying bricks. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm earning for my family. I'm laying bricks to earn for my family. He moved a little ahead, he saw a bricklayer laying bricks. He said, what are you doing? He said, well, such and such gentleman, he took the name of the archaeologist, is creating a spectacular cathedral. I'm trying to play my small role in making that cathedral beautiful. Now, all three were laying bricks. But all three were at different levels in their journey. Right? One, still doing it for the heck of doing it. Second, doing it for a motive of maintaining his family by gaining money. Third one, has a purpose of making an impact. So I think it's a journey, and it's absolutely fine to evolve at our own pace. And it's also absolutely fine to jump sometimes back into wherever we were before and then go back up there. How many of you clip your nails? Ladies don't have to raise their hands, it's okay. Because it's too much to ask them. They like their longer nails and all the nails. Men, a lot of men do, right? Pedicure, manicure and all that stuff. Yeah. How many of you cut your hair? Okay, that's brilliant. Perfect. You know what it is about nails and hair? You cut it, it grows back. You cut it, it grows back. You can't say that I'm done with it forever. And that's how life is. You deal with something, you may go back to that. You work on it again, you go back, work on it again. And that's how we progress to the next level of our journey. Yeah? Thank you.
Please.
My name is Somashekar. I'm not giving an identity because there are too many. The question, as I think through the conversation of this evening, be it lighthouse principles or concept of identity or impediments to space and realization, I can't but help think about caste and what a role it plays in our society, no matter what we do. So where do we get this wrong? What can be done to deal with it? And literally, I mean, is it the scriptural support that gets cited for it also an impediment? And how does one deal with that?
Yeah. Wow, another bomb here. I'll tell you my take on it. Right, just tell you my bit on it, like the astrology bit. I'll tell you what I feel about it. The entire caste description that is given in the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita that Mr. Paranjape, right, was quoting, the description of caste given in there is not based on birth at all. Right? There's a verse in the Gita which talks about how it is based on one's quality. Now, I'll give you a simple example. How many of you have gone to school? Sorry. Sorry for that rhetorical question. Oh, goodness me. How many of you had teachers? Of course, we all had teachers. Any of you teachers here into teaching as a professor? Probably some may not be. Now, teaching is something that a person who's inspired by that from within takes up to. Right? You have the defense forces. The defense forces are there at the border protecting our nation from attacks, from infiltration of, unwanted forces into the country. The strategy that is being made by the defense forces personnel. Then there is the business community. If I might ask how many business people here, now I know there'll be a raise. Everybody raises their hats, right? People into making money. And then there are people who probably are not into education or teaching, or people are not the brain, the brawn, not even into the money part of it. And there might be people who are probably just you might see somebody at the shop floor working out there because he has a strength and he has a skill set to do it. There is a skill set. Right? There is an IIT and there is an ITI. IIT is an engineering degree and ITI is about teaching plumbing skills, electrician skills, who you can see factory floor, sometimes at the factory floor they're working out there. Now, do any of these things have to do with birth? No. It has everything to do with ability. What if we attach the word Brahman to a teacher? What if we attach the word Kshatriya to the defense forces? What if we attach the word Vaishya to the business community? What if we attach the word Shudra to people who have a skill set and are lending that skill set to make their money? Is anyone less than the other? Is anyone better than the other? Just because a teacher is up there teaching, does it make the technician any less? Because if that electrician is not in place, you don't have all of these connections here. So for the proper social upkeep, all four of these, education is a must, protection is a must, transaction is a must, which is business. Right? And then there are people who are doing it all. How many of you go to salons? You do. How many of you realize that styling is a skill? Does your hairstylist become any less than me sitting here and giving some gyan here? When this discrimination begins, is when it all starts falling apart. When we know that everybody has a role to play, and what if we say teacher in English is translated as the word Brahman, not a position? What if we translate to say a Kshatriya in Sanskrit means an armed force personnel? What if we say a Vaishya in Sanskrit means a business person? Which is precisely why I feel when there is a misinterpreted, a wrong understanding of what the system is, then there can be oppression, then there can be superiority, inferiority complexes, then there can be discrimination, social discrimination and condemnation as well. So I don't think when we talk about the system is this in the Gita. When you talk about an abused system, then that's what we see and what we talk about a lot of times. So just because the system is abused doesn't mean the system is wrong, right? The system is wrong because it's not based on birth. It's not based on birth at all. It's based on one's qualification and one's qualities. If you have those qualities, you get that title. If you don't have those qualities, you don't get that title. Just because I'm born in a certain family doesn't make me something. Just because someone is born to someone doesn't make that person that. And that thing needs to go away, not just from the why are we talking about the caste system? Let's keep that aside. Let's look at the society in general and let's look at how this entire thing keeps working. Because someone's born to something, that is why he or she deserves. No. They have to have the mettle. They have to have the quality. They have to be able to have the qualification to be able to make that mark. If they have that mark, let them do it. So it's not about a caste system itself. This discrimination prevails on all levels of society. We look at one and talk about it because it comes to us in a very oppressive way, and rightly so. We should talk about it. At the same time, I don't see in the society all the so-called fancy circles that I move in. Caste system is very prevalent there too, where everything happens based on birth, right? We're condemning the caste system and calling the scriptures and caste system. What about the caste system prevalent in the high-class societies? Who's talking about that? So I think if we are addressing something, we should address it at the very core, right? And of course, this system as well, not undoing what you're saying. We need to look at that system too, and oppression should definitely stop. We should know and we should understand what's written in these books properly without misinterpretations. Misinterpretations can be very easily utilized for, ulterior motives, and so much can happen with misinterpretations. So we need to be very careful. But like I always say, I usually don't look at one. I look at the larger macro level things. If you're saying there's a system here, there's an entire failing system, which is a caste system, where I see that this person doesn't deserve it, still is there because just someone's a son or a daughter of somebody. Sorry, I don't care a damn. You prove your worth, here I am to respect you. Don't accept me to respect you. Don't expect that I'll respect somebody just because you're born to somebody or somebody else. I wouldn't. You prove your worth. And when we have that system, whether it's the caste system in the Bhagavad Gita system, where technically it's called the Varna system, it's not called the caste system. It's got that misinterpreted word that caste system has come because of the oppression that came along with it, but technically it's called the Varna Vyavastha. If that Varna Vyavastha is there, and if this came there, we're going by merit. I think that's what kind of resolves a lot of things then, yeah? Thank you.
Mr. Jain here. I'm trying to, I'm saying, I saw Nirja ji at the back. The amount of work on mental health, if I can get a question from her, that'd be lovely also. Vivek ji.
Swamiji, of course, your talk has been outstanding. Thank you very much. My question is very simple compared to the bombs you've answered. So this is an easy one. You've talked of so many noble qualities of kindness, humility, self-confidence, giving people space, etc. Don't you think most of these qualities are inborn in a human being? You have two siblings who stay in the same family, same values, same environment. One embodies most of the qualities you've mentioned, the other does not. For example, now we have heard such an impactful talk. We'll go back to our daily lives before you know it, and all this will be forgotten. People will live as the inherent temperament is. So how do you try and inculcate even 10% of what you've said to lead better lives?
Thank you, sir, for that question. I think...
The amount of nodding that was happening as the question was asked, so everybody's resonating with this.
आपने पूछ ही लिया. अरे, thank you, sir. So I think, like you rightly said, when you listen to something, you feel inspired to change. Like, for example, if we were to talk about the virtue of patience, we feel inspired and say, yeah, I need to be patient, I need to work on it. And I go out and my car doesn't come on time. Just take 10 minutes delay and I get worked up. Oh, I told him to be here on time. You know what I mean? But I kind of alluded to the answer when I answered his question, that it's a journey. It's a journey. It takes time for all of us to evolve. One thing is for sure. If there is, look, you know, if I throw this down, shall I do this? Okay, no. माइक वाला बोल रहा है नो सर नो. ये फेंकूं? मेरा फोन है, तो मेरा फोन है ना सर, आपका नहीं ले रहा सर, मेरा फोन है ना? मतलब कितनी सीधी बात है. सॉरी, इट्स अ सिली थिंग दैट आई एम डूइंग, एब्सोल्युटली सिली. कितनी सिली छोटी सी चीज है ना कि ग्रेविटी जो है ना हर चीज को नीचे खींचता है जी. ग्रेविटी, the pull of gravity is bringing everything down, and if I need to keep something there, I need an anti-gravity force to keep it there. By nature, if I let it go, it's going to go this. What is my hand doing? My hand is exerting my hand is exerting a force against gravity to hold it, right? So gravitational pull is not just for physical things, isn't it? We all slip internally constantly. We go back into our complacent zones. We go back into our comfort zones. A lot of times we know what is right, but may not necessarily be able to do what is right because things drag us down. Our conditionings, our habits pull us back constantly, which is why we are all WIP, always work in progress, right? Now, how do we ensure that we at least practice a tiny bit of what we read or what we watch or what we hear or what inspires us or what uplifts our spirit? How do we ensure that a little bit of that is translated into our action and is translated into our life by application? I think number one is by constantly reading, hearing and listening to these things, because if it is on our mind, it might come into action. So if I listen to it once and then go back and after 6 months I'm exposed to something like this, that period is going to take that inspiration and that motivation away. So if there's something that I need to work on, I need to constantly keep it in my mind. And if I need to keep it in my mind, the content I consume, whether it's reading, watching or listening, should be in line with what I want to change. If I want to, for instance, be a little more peaceful in my life, or I want to take it a little easy and pause, but if the content I read, hear and watch is constantly, go around, hustle, you can go, you run around, it's completely contradictory to the goal I've set for my transformation. So I need to be very cautious, conscientious and choosy about what I listen to, what I read, what I hear, because that becomes like the impetus, a regular impetus for me to take that next step. Number two, I need to make sure that I'm in the company of people who have similar goals. If I'm going to be hanging out with people who have a very different goal than mine, well, there's only two possibilities. I will pull them into my space or they will pull them into me into their space. And if I need to pull them into my space, I need to be really strong to be able to inspire them into this. Most often, if not always, a single person can easily be dragged into that other space. To give you an example, somebody is working on a certain addiction, for example, and is trying to give up a certain addiction and has chosen that as his priority for 2022, right, to change till the end of December. One thing very crucial would be to make sure that whom am I hanging out with? If I'm going to be with people who prioritize that particular addiction, I'm not out of it completely. You know what the spelling of the word habit is? Habit. You take the H out of it, a bit still remains. You take the A out of it, bit still remains. You take the B out of it still remains. That's why they say old habits die hard. So it's always work in progress. Number one, to monitor the content that I consume to make sure it's in alignment with my transformational goal. Number two is whom am I hanging out with, right? And number three, to be genuinely compassionate to our own selves. It's okay, it takes time. I might slip and I'm not going to change overnight. ऐसा नहीं होता ना कि आज भर्ती और कल चक्रवर्ती. भर्ती होने में और चक्रवर्ती होने के बीच में बहुत सारे युद्ध लड़ने पड़ते हैं. I often tell this story there was a gentleman who was asking his son, what is 9 multiplied by 8? The guy said 122. The father gave him a chocolate. The man's wife was standing there, said 9 multiplied by 8, he's saying 122, you're giving him a chocolate, do you know what is 9 multiplied by 8? He said, obviously, 72. Said, if you know the right answer, that 9 multiplied by 8 is 72, why are you giving him a chocolate when he's saying 122 for a wrong answer? He said to his wife, the day before yesterday, he was saying 172. He's 50 digits closer to the right answer. You know, we are constantly punishing ourselves and killing ourselves in guilt that I'm not able to do, I can't change, I can't do, I can't. Our language has become very self-defeating. We set a goal for ourselves, but our self-talk is very self-defeating. I can't do, I couldn't change, I couldn't accomplish. What if I say that yesterday I was there and today I am one step closer to the goal? That confidence helps me to take the next step. So I would say when we talk about application, even a little bit of what we heard, these 3 things should be kept into our mind. What is the content we consume and is it in alignment with our goal? Who are the people we are closely associated with? Are we having the same purpose? And are they dragging me down or are they pulling me up? And number 3 is rather than punishing ourselves and living in guilt, to reward ourselves for even that one little step forward inspires us to take the next step. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we got one more. Mr. Bamla wanted to ask a question also, and I think we'll take one last one, and then he's written it down.
Actually, I knew there were too many questions. Well, there's one small question I have, which I was just penning down, trying to pen down when the questionnaires were going on. And, we know that, I know that you're a passionate environmentalist at heart, Swamiji. And we know that the world leaders do talk about environment on a lot of, and sustainability. Now, how can we, and we also work in this field with a lot of youngsters, eco champs and stuff like that. So how can we connect and communicate the youth about saving the environment, as in connecting them to creating a better karma and having a karmic connection? What would be the trick for that?
Okay, thank you.
I'm only asking this because I know that you have spoken a lot on environment, and now these are times when the world leaders and sustainability and environment has been one of the most significant issues in years to come, especially for the youth, because they have to live with this environment more than maybe me and you. So that's why.
Thank you for that question.
I also heard you started an app of your own.
Yes, we did.
Which is
called Monkify.
Monkify. So I don't know whether that you.
I will definitely explain what Monkify is as well. But first, just to answer that question. In the year 2019, I was invited by the United Nations on the International Yoga Day to speak on this, yoga and climate change. Right? And I did address the UN at that year. And I remember speaking there and I was mentioning that there's 2-3 things that we're looking at. One is activism, right, in the field of environment and sustainable development goals of the UN. Activism, where people are actually leading organizations, non-profits, initiatives to make sure we do something. And in line with that is also corporate responsibility to make sure that we are in line with environment-friendly practices, right? So that's kind of activism. Second is messaging, which is where the influencers come into picture. When people who are up there, social media influencers or very popular personalities, celebrities, when they talk about it, somehow it's just how the world functions, that when people from a certain space talk about it, it makes impact, it makes sense to a lot of people, right? Just how the world works. Messaging is very crucial. But I feel there's a third thing that is very, very crucial. You can work on things on a macro level by activism and do things, and we must, no doubt. But there's something that we really need to do on a micro level, and that's personal practice. I see a lot of conferences, conclaves, conversations, and dialogues happen. And the same people who sit on stage and speak big words and use big jargon about these topics don't follow it in their lives. I hate using heavy words, so I will not use those words here. But a change in the world begins with personal practice. Revolutions start by individuals adopting a certain ideology in their lives. Mahatma Gandhi said, see the change that you want to be the change that you want to see in the world. Right? Extremely crucial. Personally for me, I live in a tiny little space, very tiny space. It's a closed space. So because it's a closed space, there's an air conditioner in my room. The only time I turn the air conditioner on is in the night when I'm meant to go to sleep because it's all closed. And I turn it on for a certain time, turn it off. There's a timer set to it. All throughout the day, even in the heat of the summer, and I'm not expecting anybody to do this. I'm telling you what I do as a personal practice to contribute to the environment and sustainable development goals. Each one of us, based on our own convenience, based on our own tolerance levels, can adopt a tiny practice. Doesn't have to be any bombastic thing, doesn't have to be any big thing. If I can take one small thing up and consistently keep doing it, imagine 1.4 billion people making a tiny commitment and practicing it consistently. You know what that multiplying factor is? You know what the compounding impact is? So until there are responsible people, nothing is going to change. I usually say in countries like Japan, I once read it said, if everybody can do it, I can do it too. If nobody can do it, I must do it. Sometimes here it happens ulta. If everybody can do it, let them do it. If nobody can do it, then how can I do it? This crippling mindset is what stops the world from being a better place. So I think we need to be more responsible and we need to, in our own way, again, I just shared my way of doing it. Each one of us way of doing it will be very different. If you can just turn the air conditioner off for 10 minutes, it's your way to contributing to environment. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I know it's getting quite late and people are hungry, it's a holiday. So, Amish, do you have stamina for a quick rapid fire?
Oh my God.
I know the choice of words is...
You can try.
Okay, we'll do a quick rapid fire. Keep it down, it's rapid fire, so, as the name suggests, short answers. The last criticism you received that you've accepted?
Stops using the word bloody.
The best compliment you received?
There's so many. Best compliment I have received is, I'm here at Indian Express Adda, you invited me.
Okay, this is, a game that we'll play here that, there are 12 people, Swamiji, who didn't make it to the Adda, but they've sought an appointment with you and they want your advice. They want your advice, whether it's a thing that you tell them to do or just general advice that you give them just to live their lives better. What advice would you give? Rohit Sharma before the World Cup.
Be in your flow state.
Okay. What advice would you give the director of the movie Adi Purush?
Indian Express Adda can give the advice.
What advice would you give the producer of the movie Adi Purush?
Anant Goenka can give the advice.
What advice would you give Sam Altman, the guy who started OpenAI, the ChatGPT?
Yes. AI is a great tool and AI should never replace RI. which is real intelligence, and it cannot.
What advice, Swamiji, would you give the couple who wanted a child but ended up with triplets?
You're blessed. You're blessed with abundance. enjoy the blessings.
What advice would you give an army man who just killed for his first time?
If you've done it with full conscience and as a call of duty, you're not doing it as an individual thing, you're doing it because it's your duty.
Okay, super. So, what advice would you give to the tech startup founder who has decided that he needs to lay off 20% of his workforce tomorrow?
I will always say, as I've always been talking about this in the corporate gatherings, that it's always a tough decision to make. People who have brought us up and made us who we are our family. If you are having a tough time in your personal life, would you lay off your mother, your father, saying, sorry, I can't afford your treatment, go ahead and do it your own self? Will I lay off my child or my wife, saying, oh, sorry, with financial troubles, I don't have enough money, go and see what you can do for yourself. So I don't lay off a person who's in my family. So if I consider my workforce as my family, I'll see how we can share the troubles together, because we are all shared our joys together. You made us us, and if you made us us, we should keep you.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Swamiji, what advice today would you give Putin?
Anant Goenka, live to Anant Goenka.
What advice, Swamiji, would you give to the teenager who has just joined a social dating app?
Yeah. What questions to a monk, isn't it? Imagine the questions are being asked to a simple, monk like me. Well, my advice would be, one very important, a relationship advice is always that, in Marathi there is a saying, it's a very popular, Mr. Paranjpe will vouch for it. Jasa dista tasa nasta म्हणूनच जग फसतं. What you see is not what always it is, and therefore the world kind of gets trapped. So be cautious. Don't just get fascinated by what it is. Look for more, understand more, see connections more, then decide what you need to do.
Super. Swamiji, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
a
very
wonderful
much,
evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very grateful.